Well, Broadway fans, I am very excited to be talking about the Tony Awards and about all things Broadway during this season of shutdown we're experiencing. And right now, with the Tony nominations announced, I am thrilled to be sitting here with Ato Blankson-Wood, first time ever nominee for his work in Slave Play. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby. And, this Slave Play, not only did you have a great morning that day with your nomination, but the whole team, it the show set a record it picked up 12 nominations, a new record for most ever nominations for a play, beating the Angels in America revival. So, walk us through, what was that morning like for you?
That morning was like really, really wild. This has been a dream of mine since I was a kid. So just like conceiving of the morning of like waking up and watching the nominations come out has been something I've been like thinking about for such a long time. And when the shutdown happened, I had it marked in my calendar, April 28th. I knew, I was like, I want to be up and ready. And so when that went away, there was a lot of disappointment. There was a lot of, it felt like I had built up a lot of excitement and expectation. And so when that went away, it was really rough. And so when we heard that the nominations were going to be announced on the 15th, I was like, don't get your hopes up again. Like, don't build up that expectation again. But, that part of me that's been kind of super excited and preparing for this day since I was a kid, that part was still very much alive. So I had my sister over, and she sat on the couch with me at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we just we sat and watched the nominations come out. And I was already, by the time they got to our category, I was already super emotional and excited about the work being recognized, the play being recognized, my castmates being recognized. So I was already in like a very emotional place. And so when I saw my name, I just lost it. I just broke down. Like, after this year, to have this victory, what feels like a victory, like this nomination to me is already, people already say like to be nominated is already to have won, but like it really felt like a small victory. Like it felt like an affirmation that, theater will continue. The work that has happened this last season is being recognized, and that this is very much in line with the legacy, and that really helped to sort of like bring me back into this, oh, there is hope moment,
Yes, I think we all needed that in the theater community at the moment. And it's a show you had a long journey with. I think, did you get involved with it in the off-Broadway? Was that your first, when you joined?
Yeah, I went and saw it. I had met Jeremy previous to the summer before he went up to Yale. And we've been friends, and I had, I had done some readings for him, and I was excited to support his work. They did this as a student production in his second year, and I just went to support him and my friends in the show. And when I saw it, like, having gone through that program, I knew sort of a lot of the work that came out of the program, and I had been a part of some really great plays. But the thing about Slave Play and sitting in the audience for it was, I recognized Jeremy as like a very like singular voice. And I was really taken aback by how much I was both delighted and disturbed by the play. And so I knew then, I said it I went up to see it with one of my best friends and my cousin, and we were taking the train back to New York. And I said, this play will come to New York. I know this play will come to New York, and I need to be a part of it. And that was in 2016 or 17. And when I found out it was coming to New York, I did everything I could to be a part of the production. And I auditioned, and it went really well. And yeah, I joined the cast. In an off-Broadway production. I had been invited up to the O'Neill previous to that, but I had some conflicts, so I wasn't able to go. And I thought that was going to jeopardize my chances of being a part of the project, but it worked out.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because you kind of saw the play then for the first time before reading it, and the characters are all sort of they're in interracial relationships, and they're going through this antebellum sexual performance therapy in Act One, and it makes for a very wild start to the play, which was certainly a talking point. But what was your first reaction when you saw that?
I'll say I was delighted and disturbed. Yeah, there was a lot of like, wait, what is happening right now? Can this be on the stage? Is this good theater? What is good theater? It just made me question a lot of like it made me question reality, which is, I think, a smart move to open the play with that, because I think the experience of being a Black person and being in relationship to white supremacy and racism in America, you're constantly sort of questioning reality. And Jeremy really put us in that mode really early on. Mm-hmm. And I think Clint Ramos brilliantly carried that forward with the mirrored set. You know, there's this really, there's this sense that, yeah, you're questioning your sense of self and reality as well. So yeah, there was a lot of like, where am I? Yeah. Actually, you know.
And that's, you know, it's incredibly vulnerable in the first act, and also very highly sexual, and you're sort of in this reverse power dynamic with Gary and his white passing boyfriend Dustin. And I'm curious, I think you guys had an intimacy coordinator there, but what was the process like in terms of really getting to a place where you were comfortable with that material?
You know, what really led Claire Warden, our amazing intimacy director, one of the first things she said to us, and which kind of framed our entire exploration of the intimacy work, was no is a full sentence, which gave us full autonomy and full agency to say, you know, I'm not comfortable with X, Y, and Z. While knowing we had to go to pretty extreme places, we had say about what that would look like, actually, what we were comfortable with. And so I, as the actor, was able to say, you know, I feel insecure about X, Y, and Z. And then Claire would go away with that and be like, all right, this moment, he needs to feel powerful. He needs to feel dominant. And if you don't feel comfortable with, you know, X, Y, and Z choreography or a certain act, what can make you feel powerful and dominant and sexy, right? And so she just left the lane so wide open for us to talk about what was okay for us, you know, and we built the intimacy based on what we were comfortable with, so we could go 110% with it, you know? Yeah. So yeah, we had a lot of agency. We had a lot of, it was very collaborative. And luckily I had, you know, my scene partner, James, and I went to grad school together. We have had a friendship for 8 years. And so building the intimacy with him and with Claire, we had a shorthand, which I think really paid off for us in the end. There was sort of a familiarity and comfort already built in, which allowed us to go even further with our personal agency. Like there wasn't any sort of editing ourselves or being shy about what we were comfortable with, just because it felt safe, you know.
Well, you had one of the most, I think, enduring moments of the play for me, even all these months later, during that first act, where, you know, Gary kind of like is almost surprised by what it does to him. He ends up climaxing, and that unleashes this wave of emotions, and he falls apart and he's wailing and crying. And it stuck with me because, one, it's incredibly emotionally affecting as an audience member, realizing what that means for the character. But also I was sitting there thinking, how does he do that 8 times a week and be able to go to, like, it's such a really kind of dark, complicated place. So was it daunting to kind of like know that that's in a way kind of staring you down and that that's coming every night?
Absolutely. I mean, at some point there was a level of surrender and release to what needed to be done, but it was definitely daunting, you know. The psychology of sex is challenging generally, right? And as an actor, when you're drawing from that, you're touching a lot of your own traumas, you know, in order to bring that to the stage. So that felt daunting, but I guess both with again, I'm going to come back to this mirrored set. It felt like eventually it felt like I could be in service of something. It felt like the audiences were leaving so affected that that kind of assuaged any sort of fear or doubt that I had, because I felt like this moment was really, really necessary to the full impact of the play. And that helped me to kind of get out of my way and be brave and commit to the moment fully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, going back to the fact that you've had to do this 8 times a week over and over, you've had quite a long journey with it, going from off-Broadway, where you got a Lortel nomination, to Broadway. Was there anything in the Broadway transfer that you sort of discovered anew or somehow like read differently, that like a new discovery once you got to Broadway?
Yeah, I think that the tension and conflict between Gary and Dustin was very prevalent downtown. That I feel like we really leaned into them being at odds. In the Broadway transfer, I think James and I really found the love, the what they were fighting for. You know, I think we really got into the fight itself off Broadway. In the Broadway transfer, I felt like the relationship deepened because we were more interested in what had brought them together and what was keeping them together than we were in what was pulling them apart. And yeah, I feel like that made the Broadway run somehow easier, knowing that love was the motivation as opposed to like figuring out like solving a conflict. Yeah, I would say that was the big discovery for me, was that at the center of all of this is really love. And I think that can really be extrapolated to the issues that were discussed in the play. At the center of it, it's not the conflict itself. It's the, I think what we're trying to do in America is get to a place where love is the motivator and not conflict or hate. And so I feel like that felt really appropriate to the evolution of the play, and gave it even more impact, I think. Yeah.
I think you and James, who's nominated alongside you in the featured actor category, have some of the most, especially in Act 2, some of the most kind of tough, thought-provoking dialogue, I think, for the audience, because you're watching these people who you do see that love there, and yet this one guy, like there is a line that always stuck with me, that where you say, I am the prize. And that just sort of, it's arresting to see someone who's supposed to be in love with this other person maybe not see them as the prize. So what was it like exploring that with him?
That was very difficult because, you know, that dynamic exists for me in my life. That is a dynamic that I have very much experienced and have had to contend with and continue to contend with. And so in some ways it felt like cathartic. It felt like an exorcism. It felt like I got to really dig down into that thing in myself and every night sort of give it space and release. So on that hand, it felt really beneficial. And then on the other hand, it felt really exposing and vulnerable. But again, because James and I have a relationship, I felt this permission to go at him hard. you know, which really gave that argument a lot of space and focus, I think. I mostly I viewed it as a way to exercise something in me, you know.
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff that really is very confronting in the show, and I think, you know, it experienced like pushback from a certain sect of people too, like protests and stuff, and it sort of felt to me like there was a segment of people who like weren't ready to confront that in a way, like even with the mirror there saying this is where we are, they weren't ready to go there, and they kind of put their hands up. So I'm curious, like, what were your interactions like, or what kind of conversations did you find yourself having with audience members?
You know, mostly people just spoke about the fact that that there were a lot of questions, that they were left speechless, that, you know, people actually, I think more people lived in sort of a middle of the road sort of questioning space than they did in like a conclusive, like, I love or I hate this play. I think the sort of major victory of the play is that it leaves you with questions. And that's what's really exciting to me about it. And so a lot of the conversations I had weren't people saying, you know, I love the play because X, Y, and Z, or I hated the play because X, Y, and Z. It was people with questions about, like, you know, how do you identify? How do you deal with this in the world? How do you do this 8 times a week? Those sorts of things were the main thrust of the conversations I had. I feel like people just wanted to engage. People just wanted to have more discussion around the issues of the play, more so than they wanted to condemn it or praise it, you know, which I think is a beautiful thing that the play did. It really sparked conversation, you know.
Absolutely did. Well, and before I let you go, I wanted to talk a little bit about your other work, because, you know, you've done a lot of really emotionally heavy work recently, like in between the transfer for slave play, you did the Rolling Stone at Lincoln Center, where you were a queer African man, which was very powerful. But I also know you from like your musical career, where you were in Hair and Lysistrata Jones. So when we do get Broadway back, what kind, like, do you gravitate towards certain roles? Is there something that a type of role that you're hope to pursue?
I am really excited about doing musicals again. It's been a while. And I think musicals in a lot of ways are much more challenging than plays, just because of the 3 disciplines you need to like have. You really have to be a triple threat to like really get there. And at least I would like to be. That's the kind of musical theater performer I'd like to be. I think I want to do something that feels that feels lighter, for sure, but still has impact, still says something, and still really does something. I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to really show that my first love was musical theater, and that it's very much a part of my DNA as a performer. So as far as roles are concerned, I have not been able to let go since I'm 16 years old of this idea of playing the leading player in Pippin at some point. I love that role, and I think it's a great opportunity. It would be a great opportunity to show acting, singing, and dance, you know. So hopefully somebody out there is listening. Yeah. And when we get Broadway back, we can make it happen.
You could be the next Ben Vereen, Patina Miller. It's time for a revival anyway, I think so. You always need a good Pippin revival.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me, Atu, and everyone who's out there watching. Subscribe to Gold Derby. Make sure you keep in touch with us during Tony season, and congrats again on your nomination.
Thank you, Sam. Have a good one.